The late September sun dipped low over Central Park, painting the treetops with hues of amber and gold. Michael Thornton, 45, walked hand in hand with his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, their weekend ritual since his wife, Sarah, succumbed to leukemia 2 years prior. The park buzzed softly with the sounds of joggers, street musicians, and families picnicking on the grass. For Michael, a tech mogul whose name adorned Manhattan skyscrapers, these walks were a sanctuary, a way to anchor himself to Lily, the bright, irrepressible center of his world. Her red coat swished as she skipped along the path, auburn curls bouncing, her green eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Daddy, look." Lily's voice sliced through the park's hum, sharp and urgent. She yanked at his hand, her small finger pointing toward a winding path near the Bethesda fountain. "That's my brother." Michael stopped dead, his heart lurching. "What did you say, sweetheart?" Lily spun to face him, her cheeks flushed, eyes wide with unshakable certainty. "That boy over there's my brother. He looks like me." "And you?" Michael's gaze followed her pointing finger. A boy, no older than 5, sat hunched on the edge of a concrete bench, clutching a battered cardboard box as if it were a lifeline. His clothes were patched and faded, his sneakers held together with strips of duct tape. But it wasn't the boy's ragged appearance that sent a chill through Michael, it was his eyes. Bright, piercing green, the exact shade as Lily's. The same shade he saw in the mirror every morning. The boy's sharp nose, the soft curve of his jaw, even the way his dark hair fell across his forehead, felt like a reflection of his daughter, and maybe himself. "Lily, honey, don't say things like that," Michael said, forcing calm into his voice, though his pulse quickened. "You don't have a brother. It's just you and me." "No, Daddy, I know it," she insisted, stamping her foot, her red coat flaring. "He's my brother. I feel it in here." She pressed a hand to her chest, her face so earnest it unnerved him. Michael frowned, his mind racing. This wasn't a childish fantasy spun from too many fairy tales. The resemblance was undeniable, almost eerie. The boy was staring back now, his gaze cautious but steady, like he was sizing them up. Michael's throat tightened. He took a step forward, Lily's hand still clasped in his, and approached the bench slowly, careful not to startle the child. He crouched to the boy's level, keeping his voice gentle. "Hey there, what's your name?" The boy hugged the box tighter, his knuckles whitening. He said nothing, his green eyes flickering between Michael and Lily. Michael tried again, softening his tone further. "I'm Michael. This is my daughter, Lily. We're just taking a walk through the park. What about you?" The boy glanced at Lily, who grinned brightly, then back at Michael. His voice was barely a whisper, rough from disuse. "Ethan." "Ethan," Michael repeated, offering a small smile. "That's a good name. Where's your mom, Ethan?" Ethan hesitated, his shoulders hunching. "At home. She's sick." Michael's chest tightened, a pang of concern mixing with something deeper, something he couldn't yet name. "Do you live far from here?" Ethan looked down at the cracked pavement. "In a basement apartment, on 38th Street. Mama doesn't let me go far, but she was sleeping too long, and there was no food, so I came out." Michael's heart sank. "Do you have a dad?" he asked, his voice catching on the question. Ethan shook his head, his expression blank. "Mama said he left before I was born." A wave of dizziness hit Michael, the world tilting slightly. His mind reeled back 6 years, to a fleeting memory buried under the weight of his corporate empire. Rachel Evans-Blund, green-eyed, quiet, had worked briefly at Thornton Solutions, his tech firm. She'd been a data analyst, let go after a client database error that sparked accusations of negligence. Michael, swamped with mergers and board meetings, had signed her termination without a second thought, dismissing her emails and calls as routine complaints. She'd vanished from his life, but now, staring at Ethan, the pieces clicked with chilling clarity. Could Ethan be his son? He reached into his backpack, where Lily had insisted on packing snacks. Pulling out a peanut butter sandwich wrapped in foil, he held it out. "Here," he said. "You must be hungry." Ethan eyed the sandwich, hesitating, then took it with a murmured, "Thank you." He unwrapped it slowly, eating with deliberate care, as if expecting someone to snatch it away. Lily plopped onto the grass beside him, cross-legged, her grin unwavering. "Hi, Ethan. I like your eyes. They're just like mine." Ethan blinked, a faint smile curling his lips, the first crack in his guarded demeanor. Michael's heart ached, the resemblance between the two children striking him like a physical blow. He stood, pulling out his phone, his hands trembling slightly. "Karen," he said to his assistant, his voice tight, "I need everything you can find on Rachel Evans. She worked for us about 6 years ago. HR records, contact info, anything. Start now." "Yes, Mr. Thornton," Karen replied, her tone crisp and unquestioning. Michael looked back at the children. Lily was showing Ethan her stuffed giraffe, chattering about its name Emma. Whiskers and how it loved adventures. Ethan listened, his shoulders easing slightly. Michael knelt again, his voice soft but firm. "Ethan, how would you feel about coming with us for a little while? Just to get a warm meal, maybe clean up a bit. Then I'll take you back to your mom." Ethan stared at him, his green eyes searching Michael's face for a long moment. Then he nodded, clutching his sandwich and box tightly. Michael lifted Lily into his arms, resting a gentle hand on Ethan's shoulder. As they walked toward the park's exit, Lily's words echoed in his mind. "That's my brother." He didn't know what truth awaited, but something deep within told him his carefully ordered life was about to unravel. The elevator glided to a stop, opening to Michael's penthouse, a sprawling space of glass and steel overlooking Central Park's twinkling lights. Ethan hesitated at the threshold, his battered box pressed to his chest, his sneakers scuffing the marble floor. "Come in, buddy," Michael said gently. "You're safe here." Lily darted ahead, her curls bouncing. "Ethan, you gotta see my room. It's got glow-in-the-dark stars and a fort." Ethan stepped forward slowly, his eyes wide as they swept over the polished hardwood, the towering windows, the crystal chandelier casting prisms on the walls. It was a world removed from the cracked sidewalks and flickering bulbs of his Brooklyn neighborhood. He followed Lily down the hall, still hugging his box, his steps cautious but curious. Michael watched them disappear into Lily's room, then headed to his home office, a sleek space lined with bookshelves and awards. He unlocked a steel cabinet, pulling out a stack of old employee files, their edges yellowed from years of neglect. Flipping through, he found her, Rachel Evans. Her photo, stapled to the file, showed a young woman with blonde hair and a shy, warm smile. She'd been a data analyst for 9 months, competent but reserved. A missing client report had led to accusations of carelessness, and a junior manager had pushed for her dismissal. Michael, distracted by a high-stakes merger, had signed the termination order without a meeting, assuming it was routine. Rachel had left quietly, but her emails flagged as follow-up in his inbox had piled up, unanswered. He'd dismissed her calls as complaints, never listening to her voicemails. He found an emergency contact form in an address in Brooklyn, a dilapidated building notorious for cheap rent and shoddy maintenance. A quick online search pulled up images of cracked walls, graffiti-tagged doors, and overflowing dumpsters. Michael's stomach churned. Ethan had been telling the truth. His mother was sick, raising him in poverty, while Michael dined with investors and sealed billion-dollar deals. Guilt clawed at him, sharp and unrelenting. He hadn't just ignored Rachel. He'd erased her from his world when she needed him most. And now, there was a boy who might be his son. That night, as Lily and Ethan played with building blocks on the living room carpet, Michael stepped onto the balcony and called a discreet charity he'd worked with before. "I need a grocery delivery to an address in Brooklyn," he said, his voice low. "Full order fruits, vegetables, meat, medicine, vitamins, cleaning supplies, no branding, no donor note. Deliver it by morning, quietly." "Understood, Mr. Thornton," the representative replied. Michael returned to the living room. Lily had draped a blanket over 2 chairs, creating a makeshift fort. "This is our spaceship," she declared, pulling Ethan inside. "You're the pilot," Ethan smiled, small but genuine, his guarded posture softening. Michael's throat tightened. The boy's quiet grace, the way he responded to Lily's kindness, mirrored his daughter and himself, in ways he hadn't expected. Ethan wasn't just a stranger. He was a piece of a past Michael had buried. He had to face Rachel, apologize, and uncover the truth, no matter how painful. The next morning, Michael rose before dawn, dressing quietly while the children slept. He prepared breakfast pancakes stacked high with strawberries, orange juice in colorful cups. When Lily and Ethan woke, he knelt beside them. "We're going on a little adventure today," he said, keeping his tone light. Ethan's eyes narrowed, his voice small. "Is it far?" "Not too far," Michael said, packing a bag with clean clothes for Ethan and a toy car Lily insisted he keep. "Just somewhere important." In the car, Michael's driver, Tom, glanced at him in the rearview mirror, sensing the tension. "Where to, Mr. Thornton?" "Brooklyn," Michael said, reciting the address. As Manhattan's gleaming towers gave way to worn brick buildings and rusted fire escapes, Michael's heart pounded. The city's wealth faded into cracked sidewalks and flickering streetlights. He was stepping into a world he'd never truly seen, one he'd helped create through his indifference. The car pulled up to a graffiti-scarred building, its windows patched with cardboard. Michael stepped out, Ethan beside him, clutching his small bag. They climbed a dim stairwell, the air heavy with mildew and old paint. At apartment 4B, Michael knocked, his breath shallow. Footsteps shuffled, and the door creaked open. Rachel stood there, her blonde hair pulled into a tired bun, her face pale, but unmistakably hers. Her green eyes widened, flashing with recognition, then hardened. "Ethan." She dropped to her knees, pulling him into a fierce hug. "Where have you been?" Ethan buried his face in her shoulder. "Mama." Rachel looked up, her voice ice cold. "Michael, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk," Michael said softly, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Lily saw Ethan in the park. She said he's her brother. I didn't believe it at first, but I need to know the truth." Rachel's jaw tightened, her arms still around Ethan. "You don't get to ask questions, not after what you did." "Please," Michael said, his voice breaking. 5 minutes. For Ethan. She held Ethan close, her voice trembling with suppressed anger. "I was pregnant, Michael. I tried to tell you, mails, calls, messages. No one let me through. Then you fired me. I had nothing, no job, no savings, no one." Michael's stomach dropped, guilt surging like a tide. "Rachel, I never saw those. I swear, I was buried in work, but that's no excuse." She laughed, the sound bitter and sharp. "Of course you didn't. You were too busy building your empire. I was 23, terrified, and alone. Then I had Ethan, and I raised him by myself." Michael's throat tightened, his eyes burning. "I'm so sorry. I should have looked for you, asked questions. I failed you. You don't get to waltz in now and play savior," she snapped. "Ethan's my life. It's not much, but it's ours." Michael knelt beside her, meeting her gaze. "Rachel, is he my son?" She hesitated, a tear slipping down her cheek. Then she nodded, her voice barely audible. "Yes, but I don't want your money or your pity. I just want to protect him." "I'm not here to take him away," Michael said, his voice steady despite the storm inside. "I want to help, however you'll let me." Rachel's eyes narrowed, wary but searching. "I don't know if I can forgive you." "I understand," Michael said, "but please, let me try." He reached into his coat and placed an envelope on the counter. "This is Forethanrant, medicine, food. I'll come back tomorrow." Rachel's fingers trembled as she took the envelope, her gaze softening just a fraction. "One more thing," Michael said. "Will you let me do a DNA test, just to be sure, for all of us?" She studied him, then nodded reluctantly. "Fine, but no promises." Michael touched Ethan's shoulder gently. "I'll see you soon, okay?" Ethan gave a small nod, then, without warning, stepped forward and hugged Michael's leg briefly. Rachel said nothing, her expression unreadable. Michael turned and walked down the hall, his heart heavier than ever, but a flicker of hope burned beneath the weight. He'd made mistakes, terrible ones, but maybe, just maybe, he could start to make them right. 3 weeks later, Michael stood in his office, the Manhattan skyline a glittering backdrop. The DNA results trembled in his hand. The words stark and undeniable. Probability of paternity, 99.98%. Ethan was his son. He exhaled slowly, his gaze drifting to a framed photo on his desk. Lily, grinning in her red coat, her eyes bright with joy. He picked up his phone, arranging for Ethan to visit again, not as a guest, but as family. His son. That afternoon, Ethan stepped into the penthouse, his cardboard box replaced with a small backpack Michael had given him. Lily ran to him, squealing, "Ethan, you're my brother for real." She tugged him toward the living room. "We can build a fort or paint my dollhouse." Michael watched, a quiet peace settling in his chest, but the moment was fleeting. His phone buzzed incessantly, notifications piling up. Headlines blared across his screen. Tech Titan's secret love child exposed. Michael Thornton's hidden past rocks Wall Street. Paparazzi swarmed his building, their cameras flashing like vultures circling. His board of directors demanded an emergency call. "This is a disaster," snapped CFO Richard Hayes, his voice clipped. "Stocks are down 6%. You should have handled this privately." "It's not a scandal," Michael said sharply, his jaw tight. "It's my son. You're risking our reputation." Another director, Elaine Carter, chimed in. "Investors are spooked. If being a father is a risk," Michael said, his voice rising, "then maybe we need to rethink what this company stands for." He ended the call, slamming the phone onto his desk. The board's priorities, profit, image, control, felt hollow against the reality of Ethan's existence. In the penthouse, Ethan was polite but withdrawn. He ate meals alone, spoke in monosyllables, and often sat by the window, staring at the door as if waiting for Rachel. Michael saw the distancement he could buy safety, but not trust, not love. That evening, he knelt beside Ethan, who was tracing a finger along the edge of his new backpack. "Hey, buddy," Michael said. "How about we make pizza tonight? Just you, me, and Lily. From scratch." Ethan blinked, his green eyes curious. "Make it." "Yeah," Michael said, grinning. "Dough, sauce, the works. Lily's gonna want to make cheese stars." Lily clapped, bouncing on her toes. "And pepperoni flowers." They gathered in the kitchen, flour dusting the counter. Michael showed Ethan how to knead the dough, his small hands tentative at first, then bolder. Lily shaped pepperoni into hearts and stars, giggling when they fell apart. Ethan laughed, a soft, unguarded sound that filled the room like sunlight. For the first time, the penthouse felt like a home, not a showcase. After dinner, Michael brought out a blue bicycle, a twin to Lily's red one. "This is yours," he said. "You and your sister are a team now." Ethan stared at the bike, his fingers brushing the handlebars. He didn't speak, but his lips curled into a small, real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. Across the city, Rachel sat on her worn couch, scrolling through news articles on her phone. Images of Michael and Ethan were everywhere outside the penthouse, at the park, even grainy shots of Ethan's old apartment building. Her chest tightened. Michael looked genuine, his arm around Ethan, protective, not performative. But could he really have changed? Her phone buzzed with a text. "Rachel, I know this is overwhelming, but I want to do this right for Ethan and you. Come visit, no pressure. Let's figure this out together." She read it again and again, memories of sleepless nights, rocking Ethan to sleep clashing with Michael's quiet persistence. She'd kept Ethan from him out of fear. But now, seeing Michael face the media storm and claim Ethan publicly, she wondered if she'd misjudged him. Rachel stepped out of the penthouse elevator, her purse strap clenched, so tightly her knuckles whitened. Laughter spilled from the living room, bright and unguarded. Michael greeted her at the door, his smile cautious but warm. "Rachel, thank you for coming." She nodded stiffly, her voice clipped. "I'm here for Ethan." He stepped aside, gesturing her in. Ethan was sprawled on the floor beside Lily, surrounded by crayons, puzzles, and a half-built block tower. His face lit up. "Mama." He ran to her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Rachel knelt, hugging him tightly. "How are you, sweetheart?" "I like it here," Ethan said, his voice soft but certain. "Lily's funny. We're drawing spaceships." Rachel smiled faintly, her eyes flicking to Michael, wary but curious. He offered her a cup of tea and motioned to a sitting area overlooking the park. "Can we talk?" She sat, her posture rigid. "I've made some arrangements," Michael began, his tone calm but deliberate. "For your medical care. I spoke with a specialist at Mount Sinai. They'll cover everything, no cost to you." Rachel stiffened, her voice sharp. "I didn't ask for your charity, Michael." "It's not charity," he said gently. "It's the least I owe you for what I took from you." She looked away, her jaw tight. "I also found a job opening," he continued, undeterred. "A marketing role at a partner firm. Good pay, flexible hours. It's yours if you want it. No obligations." Rachel raised an eyebrow, her tone dry. "So now I owe you a job?" "You owe me nothing," Michael said, his eyes steady. "You've raised Ethan with strength I can't imagine. You deserve a life that's more than just surviving." Rachel stared at him, her defenses wavering. She'd expected arrogance, manipulation, but his words felt raw, unpolished. Later, as Ethan and Lily built a block tower, it toppled, and Lily giggled, clapping her hands. Michael knelt beside Ethan. "Want to try again?" Ethan looked up, his voice soft. "Okay, Dad." Michael froze, his breath catching. Rachel's heart stuttered. Ethan stacked another block, oblivious to the moment's weight. Michael's eyes met Rachel's across the room, shimmering with unshed tears. She said nothing, but something inside her shifted a crack in the wall she'd built. The next morning, as Rachel prepared to leave, she found a small box on the side table with a note. Inside was a silver necklace, its pendant engraved with Ethan and Lily. The note read, "So you always remember we're family because of them." Her hands trembled as she closed the box. In the kitchen, where Michael was making breakfast with the kids, she cleared her throat. "Michael, I heard about my mom's hospital bill. Paid last week." He looked up, surprised. "I didn't tell you she was sick," Rachel said, her voice catching. "But you found out and took care of it." "I didn't want to make a show," Michael said. "It was about her, not me." Tears welled in Rachel's eyes. "Why are you doing all this?" "Because I failed you once," he said, his voice thick. "I won't fail you again." Rachel stood still for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Ethan can stay here for a while. He's happy. He deserves that." "And you?" Michael asked, his voice gentle. "I don't know yet," she said honestly, "but I'm willing to give you a chance to show me." Michael smiled, not pressing for more. As Rachel left, Ethan ran to her, hugging her tightly. "I'll be okay, Mama. We're a team." She kissed his forehead. Always, clutching the necklace, she stepped into the elevator, a spark of healing igniting within her. Ethan's first day at his new private school was a whirlwind of excitement and quiet dread. Lily, sporting her red backpack, held his hand as they entered the classroom, chattering about her favorite teacher. Ethan felt the weight of curious stares. His shoes, though new, were simpler than the polished loafers of his classmates, his backpack plain compared to their designer brands. A boy with slicked back hair smirked, leaning toward his friend. "That's the kid from the news, right? The one from the slums." Ethan's shoulders stiffened, his gaze dropping to the floor. Lily spun around, her green eyes flashing. "Stop it," she shouted, her small fists balled. "Ethan's my brother, and he's the best. You're just mean." The classroom fell silent, the teacher pausing mid-sentence. Ethan looked at Lily, stunned by her ferocity. She grabbed his hand, smiling as if nothing had happened. From that moment, the whispers faded, and Ethan found a quiet safety in her presence. At home, Michael and Rachel worked together to ease Ethan's transition. Evenings were spent at the dining table, reviewing math homework, practicing reading. Weekends meant trips to the park, where Lily insisted on carousel rides, Michael packing sandwiches, and Rachel bringing homemade lemonade. Small, unspoken gestures wove them closer. Mitchell handing Rachel a scarf on a chilly afternoon, Rachel adjusting his tie before a school event without thinking. Co-parenting built a rhythm, and that rhythm warmed into something gentler, more familiar. At parent-teacher night, the classroom buzzed with parents admiring crayon drawings pinned to the walls. Michael and Rachel stood side by side, listening to Ethan's teacher praise his progress. A woman in designer heels approached, her smile sharp as she addressed Rachel. "It must be strange for you, being here," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "Not everyone fits in at a school like this." Rachel stiffened, her face flushing. Michael stepped forward, his voice calm but edged with steel. "Excuse me, Rachel is Ethan's mother. She raised him with more strength and love than anyone in this room could claim. I respect her more than I respect anyone." The woman blinked, flustered, and muttered an apology before retreating. Rachel's eyes glistened, her voice soft. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," Michael said firmly, "because it's true." Days later, the family picnicked in Central Park, a blanket spread beneath a sprawling oak. Michael packed turkey sandwiches and apple slices. Rachel brought a thermos of lemonade. Ethan and Lily chased each other across the grass, their laughter ringing out. As the sun dipped low, Lily climbed into Rachel's lap, wrapping her small arms around her. "My mom is gone," she whispered, her voice small but clear. "But you're so nice. Can you be my mommy too?" Rachel's breath caught, her heart swelling. She held Lily close, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'd love to be there for you, sweetheart," she said, her voice trembling. "Always." That evening, as they packed up, Rachel walked beside Michael, her steps slower than usual. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice quiet. "I want to move closer. Not here, but near enough for the kids. It will make things easier." Michael's face lit up. "That's a great idea. And maybe we can talk more about the past, about everything." Rachel nodded, a small smile breaking through. "I'd like that." Months passed, their bond deepening through the quiet routines of family life. One afternoon, Ethan and Lily hunched over a giant sheet of paper in the penthouse, paintbrushes in hand. "What's this?" Rachel asked, kneeling beside them. "Our family picture." Lily beamed. "That's you, Daddy, Ethan, me, and Mr. Whiskers." Rachel's eyes softened at the colorful, chaotic masterpiece, a stick-figure family under a bright yellow sun. That night, Michael hung the painting in the hallway, securing it with care. "This belongs here," he said, his voice thick with pride. One evening, over coffee in the penthouse kitchen, Michael turned to Rachel, his expression tentative. "I've been thinking," he said, "what if we lived together, all of us, as a family?" Rachel hesitated, her fingers tightening around her mug. "Michael, I've fought hard for my independence. I'm not ready to give that up." He nodded, his face open. "I understand. But if you ever want to start that bakery you used to talk about, the offer's still open." Rachel's eyes lit up, a spark of her old dreams reigniting. "I'll take it." Michael found a cozy storefront near the children's school, handling the paperwork discreetly to give Rachel full control. She chose the menu: cinnamon rolls, lemon tarts, chocolate croissants, and picked out soft blue tiles for the counter. At the grand opening, balloons bobbed in the breeze, and neighbors lined up for free cookies. Ethan and Lily, in matching aprons, handed out samples, their faces smeared with frosting. Rachel stepped outside to check the line and froze, her breath catching. The sign above the shop read, "Eleanor's Dream," named after a late mother who taught her to bake and believed in her when no one else did. Tears welled in Rachel's eyes. Michael stepped beside her, his voice soft. "I wanted to honor her. And you." Rachel could only nod, moved beyond words. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. That night, after the guests had gone, and the kids dozed on a bench in the bakery, Ethan spiked a sudden fever. His cheeks flushed, his breathing shallow. Rachel's heart raced, memories of sleepless nights in their old apartment flooding back. "We need a doctor," she said, her voice trembling. Michael stayed calm, fetching a cool cloth and calling his personal physician. "He's on his way," he said, kneeling beside Ethan. He wiped the boy's forehead, whispering reassurances. "You're okay, buddy. We're right here." Rachel held Ethan's hand, her eyes locked on his small, flushed face. Michael's arms settled around her shoulders, steady and warm. They sat through the night, a united front, their whirring binding them closer. Just before dawn, Ethan stirred, his fever breaking. His green eyes fluttered open, finding them both. "Are you staying?" he asked, his voice weak. "We're right here," Michael said, his voice thick. Ethan reached out, his small hands grasping theirs. "I want us to be a family," he said. "All of us." Rachel leaned into Michael, her defenses crumbling. "I've been so scared to trust again," she whispered. "But I see it now, you've changed." "I had to," Michael said, his eyes meeting hers. "For him, for you, for us." Rachel closed her eyes, a tear slipping free. "Let's try again," she said, slowly, one day at a time. Michael took her hand, his grip firm but gentle. As morning light spilled across the bakery Signalina's dream, it glowed like a promise, a testament to new beginnings. A year later, the Thornton family had settled into a warm, sunlit home in a leafy Long Island suburb, a far cry from Manhattan's frenetic pulse. The front yard was a chaos of toys, chalk drawings, and a small vegetable patch where Ethan insisted on growing tomatoes, like at the bakery. Eleanor's dream thrived, its tables filled with locals, savoring Rachel's cinnamon rolls and lemon tarts. The walls were a gallery of children's artwork, Ethan and Lily's colorful scribbles prominent among them. Rachel ran the shop with confidence, her hands flowered and her smile easy, a woman who'd reclaimed her dreams. Michael had stepped back from his CEO role at Thornton Solutions, delegating daily operations to focus on family. He still attended key meetings, but his schedule now revolved around school pickups, bedtime stories, and impromptu dance parties in the kitchen. Ethan and Lily were inseparable, their days filled with fort building, bike races, and painting murals on the garage door. To them, there was no before, only this vibrant now, where they were simply brother and sister, heart and soul. On a golden September afternoon, the family hosted a backyard celebration to mark the anniversary of the day, their lives intertwined day. Lily pointed across the park and changed everything. The picnic table was adorned with wildflowers, and soft just played from a speaker tucked under the porch. Neighbors, bakery regulars, and a few close friends gathered, their laughter mingling with the scent of grilled burgers and Rachel's signature peach cobbler. Lily twirled in a red dress, her curls bouncing, while Ethan carefully arranged plates, his quiet pride evident. Michael tapped his glass, the crowd quieting. "Thank you all for being here," he said, his voice steady but warm. "A year ago, I had no idea my life was about to change forever, but it did, in the best way possible. Today, we celebrate the heart of our Homer family." Rachel stood beside him, her eyes glowing with quiet joy. Just then, Ethan and Lily ran forward, their faces alight with excitement. "We have a surprise," Lily squealed, her voice carrying over the yard. They handed their parents a large, carefully folded piece of paper, its edges crinkled from eager hands. Michael unfolded it, his breath catching. It was a crayon drawing, vivid and heartfelt, for figures holding hands beneath a radiant sun, a shaggy dog, presumably Mr. Whiskers, at their feet. Above them, in wobbly letters, it read, "Our family forever." The crowd murmured, some wiping tears, as the simplicity of the image struck a universal chord. Rachel's hand found Michael's, their fingers intertwining, their eyes meeting in a moment of unspoken understanding. Michael knelt, kissing the top of each child's head. Then he turned to Rachel, his voice thick with emotion. "There's something I want to give you," he said. From his pocket, he pulled a small velvet box and opened it, revealing a delicate silver ring engraved with 4 names: Michael, Rachel, Ethan, Lily. "This isn't a proposal," he said, his eyes locked on hers. "It's a promise to always be here, for all of you, no matter what." Rachel's eyes filled with tears as she slipped the ring onto her finger, her voice barely a whisper. "I promise the same." The crowd erupted in soft applause, the moment intimate yet shared. As twilight settled, the family gathered on the porch swing, Ethan and Lily leaning against their parents, their eyes heavy from the day's excitement. Laughter echoed across the yard, fireflies blinking in the garden. Michael looked at Rachel, his heart full. "We lost each other once," he said softly. "We're never letting go again." Rachel rested her head on his shoulder, her hand brushing the ring on her finger. The children's breathing slowed, their warmth a reminder of the life they'd built. Under the fading light of a gentle sky, the family held on to one another, whole, forgiven, and unbreakable. This story of Michael, Rachel, Ethan, and Lily is a testament to the power of love, forgiveness, and second chances. It reminds us that even the deepest wounds can heal when we choose compassion over pride, connection over isolation. But it also forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about fairness, privilege, and accountability. Should Michael have faced harsher consequences for ignoring Rachel's pleas years ago, leaving her to raise Ethan in poverty? Does his wealth and status make his redemption too easy, a luxury not afforded to those without his resources? And what about the broader injustice we call dismissals, systemic poverty, the stigma Ethan faced at school that shapes their struggles? These questions linger, challenging us to examine our own roles in perpetuating or dismantling unfair systems. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Where do you stand on personal responsibility versus societal failure? Should redemption come with a steeper price, or is change enough? Have you faced injustice, prejudice, or violence in your own life? And how did you respond? Your voice matters. Let's spark a conversation that digs deep into these complex issues. Like, share, and join us for more stories that challenge, inspire, and remind us what it means to be human.